Hi, this story will make you think about trust, relationships, and the true cost of betrayal. I hope you find it interesting. Subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments. Sarah was enjoying a quiet morning in her cozy suburban home. She was making coffee when John, her husband, hurriedly got ready for work. "You forgot your folder," she said, noticing the black leather briefcase on the table. Don't worry, I'll be back for it tonight," he replied, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. After John left, Sarah decided to clean the kitchen. When she picked up her briefcase to put it on the shelf, it suddenly opened. Out fell a document with a large inscription, "Account at First National Bank." "What is this?" Sarah thought as she picked up the paper. She sat down at the table and began to read it. The document confirmed the existence of a bank account she had never heard of. The amount indicated was $150,000. "This must be a mistake," she muttered, but her heart was already beating faster. Sarah knew that she and John had always shared finances. They had a joint account where all their income came in, and they openly discussed large expenses. Why didn't he tell me about this account? She asked herself. Sarah began to remember if there was anything that might have hinted at such a secret. Recently, John had been staying late at work a lot, explaining that he had a lot of work to do. He had also become more reserved when it came to money. Could it have something to do with this account? Sarah wondered, feeling her doubts turning into suspicion. Sarah decided not to jump to conclusions. She made a copy of the document and returned it to its place in her briefcase so that John wouldn't suspect anything. "Maybe I'm just exaggerating," she told herself, although she knew inside that this was just the beginning. That same day, Sarah met with her best friend Katie to share her thoughts. "You have to find out the truth," Katie said. "If he's hiding something, it could be serious." "But how do I go about it?" Sarah asked. I don't want to ruin our relationship over a misunderstanding." "Start small," Kathy advised. "Find out if the account is real and watch his behavior." That evening, Sarah sat in the living room looking at John as he read the newspaper. She tried to find answers in his eyes, but all she could see was his usual smile. "What are you hiding from me, John?" She thought, deciding to proceed cautiously but persistently. The next morning, Sarah woke up earlier than usual, her mind preoccupied with the document she had found. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had gone wrong in their lives. Sarah, a 45-year-old housewife who has devoted her entire life to her family. Has always trusted John, but now she feels that this trust has been shaken. John, Sarah's 50-year-old husband, a manager in a large company. He seems caring and honest on the outside, but his recent behavior raises questions. Micking, Sarah and John's 20-year-old son, a college student. He is often absent from school, but remains close to his mother. Katie, Sarah's best friend, who always gives her wise and straightforward advice. Sarah decided to take a closer look at John's behavior. She noticed that he was checking his phone more often and disappearing into the next room to talk. "This is definitely not like him," she thought. One night when John left his phone on the kitchen table, Sarah decided to look at his messages, but the phone was locked and she didn't know the password. Why did he change the password? Sarah asked herself. We didn't have any secrets before. This fact only increased her suspicions. Sarah decided to talk to her son, hoping that he had noticed something unusual. "Michael, have you noticed anything strange about your father's behavior lately?" she asked. Michael shrugged his shoulders. "No, Mom, but he did seem a little more tense. Could it be because of work?" Sarah thought about it. "Maybe," she said, although her intuition told her otherwise. Katie came to Sarah's house for lunch. I've been watching him, but I haven't found anything concrete yet," Sarah said. "Maybe you should check his bank statements," Katie suggested. That would be a breach of trust," Sarah replied. But didn't he break it first?" asked Kathy. Sarah was silent, thinking about her friend's words. That evening, John left his briefcase open on the couch. Sarah saw one more document, a receipt for a large hotel bill in a neighboring town. What was he doing in that hotel? She asked herself, holding the receipt in her hands. Sarah could no longer ignore what was happening. And maybe it has something to do with that bill, she thought. She decided to call the bank and find out more about the account. Sarah sat in silence, looking at the receipt. Her heart was beating faster, but she knew she had to follow through. The next day, Sarah woke up with the firm intention of finding out the truth. Her suspicions left no room for doubt. John was hiding something, and it was not only about the account, but possibly about their relationship. Sarah took the document with the bank's name and account number. She dialed the customer service number. Hello, I would like to inquire about an account, she began. Please tell me the name of the account holder. The operator replied. John Williams, Sarah said, trying to sound confident. Unfortunately, we can't provide that information without the owner's consent, the operator replied. Sarah realized she would have to find another way, though she shared her failure with Kathy. That was a pretty risky move, Kathy said. But there is another way. What's that? Sarah asked. AOE, if you can find some of his statements or documents with passwords, you can access them online, Kathy explained. Sarah thought about it. She didn't want to go that far, but she realized that this might be her only chance. When John left for work, Sarah decided to look around his office. She knew it was an invasion of his privacy, but her suspicions were too strong. On his desk, she found a notebook with notes. On one of the sheets, she wrote down his account number and password. This is it, she whispered. Sarah went to the bank's website and entered the data. A few seconds later, her account balance appeared in front of her $150,000. But that was only the beginning. She saw several recent transactions, and one of them caught her eyeing a $50,000 transfer to Amanda Brooks. Who is Amanda Brooks? Sarah thought, feeling her heart clench in pain. She looked through the statements, searching for more details. It seemed that transfers to this woman's name had been made regularly over the past 6 months. This can't be true, she told herself. Sarah decided to find more information about Amanda. She entered her name into a search engine and came across her social media profile. The photo was of a young woman who looked confident and happy. Sarah noticed that several of the photos were taken at the same hotel she had found the receipt for earlier. Sarah sat down on the couch, holding the phone in her hands. Her hands were shaking and her eyes were filled with tears. "John, how could you?" she whispered. Sarah knew her suspicions had been confirmed, but now she was faced with the question what to do next. Sarah couldn't calm down after learning that John had transferred a significant amount of money to a woman named Amanda Brooks. She felt angry, frustrated, and hurt. She couldn't keep quiet any longer. Sarah decided to talk to John that evening. She waited for him to come home from work, sitting in the living room. Her heart was beating fast, but she knew she had to find out the truth. I can't live in the dark anymore, she told herself. John walked into the house, looking tired but friendly. "Hi, Sarah," he said, kissing her on the cheek. We need to talk," she replied coldly. John stopped and looked at her carefully. "What's wrong?" he asked. Who is Amanda Brooks?" Sarah asked sharply, holding up her phone with the bank account page open. John turned pale. Where did you get this?" He asked, trying to buy time. "That's not important," Sarah replied. "What's important is that you wired her $50,000. "Sarah, it's not what you think," John began. "Then what is it?" she interrupted. John sighed. "Amanda is a friend. She was in a difficult situation, and I was just trying to help her." A friend." Sarah laughed sarcastically. "Do you seriously expect me to believe that?" "It's the truth," John insisted. She was in debt, and I decided to help her so she wouldn't lose her house, and you decided to use our money to do it," Sarah exclaimed. John remained silent. "I found her profile," she said. "She doesn't look like someone who's in financial trouble. And these photos at the hotel, don't they ring a bell?" John looked away. "I made a mistake," he finally said. John had given up. Yes, we were in a relationship," he said quietly, "but it's over. I sent her money to close the deal and never go back to it." Sarah felt her heart break. "Do you realize what you've done?" Sir?" she asked, barely holding back her tears. "You've not only betrayed me, but you've jeopardized our future." John tried to approach her, but she stepped back. don't know if I can ever forgive you," Sarah said, "but know that you have lost my trust." She went into the bedroom, leaving John standing in the living room. After John's shocking confession, Sarah decided to keep going. She realized that her husband was hiding more than an affair. Her goal was to find out the truth about Amanda Brooks. The next morning, Sarah looked at Amanda's social media profile again. She noticed that most of her posts were captioned with pictures of a luxurious life, vacations at resorts, parties in expensive restaurants, designer handbags. Is this the kind of person who needed financial help? Hello, Sarah thought ironically. Sarah decided to share her findings with Katie. "I think Amanda was using John for money," Sarah said. "It looks like it," Kathy agreed. But if you want to know more, you need to dig deeper." Kathy suggested contacting a private investigator to get more information. A few days later, Sarah met with a detective named Richard, who was recommended to her by Kathy. What exactly do you want to know?" he asked. Everything about Amanda Brooks," Sarah replied. "Her real life, her connections to my husband, and possibly her intentions." Richard agreed to take the case. A week later, Richard returned with information. "Amanda Brooks is a 20-year-old woman who works as a manager for a firm associated with your husband," he said. Sarah froze. They met a corporate event," the detective continued. And after that, they met regularly." "What else?" asked Sarah. She has no financial problems," Richard said. "In fact, her lifestyle depends on the men she has relationships with." So she's using John," Sarah clarified. "It looks like it," the detective replied. Her ex-partner also complained that she was taking money from him. Sarah felt her anger mix with a sense of deep disappointment. Sarah decided to call Amanda. As she found her number in John's files. "Hello, is this Amanda?" she asked. "Yes. Who is this?" A calm voice answered. "This is Sarah Williams, John's wife," she said. Amanda was silent for a few seconds and then answered. "How can I help you?" "I know you had a relationship with my husband," Sarah said. "Enough if you have questions. Discuss it with John," Amanda replied, clearly avoiding the conversation. I just want to understand why you were using him for money," Sarah added. That's your speculation," Amanda replied sharply and hung up. Sarah put the phone down and felt her heart fill with anger and frustration. She realized that her main task now was to find a way to protect herself and her future. Sarah decided that she could no longer stay in the shadows. She realized that it was time to confront John and Amanda face to face. It was risky, but she knew it was the only way to get the truth. Sarah called John, asking him to come home early. "We need to have a serious talk," she said, keeping her voice steady. John agreed, not realizing that Sarah had invited another guest. Sarah also called Amanda. You have to come if you want to avoid trouble," she said. Amanda hesitated but agreed, realizing that might be for her safety. Evening. John walked into the living room, looking a little confused. What's going on, Sarah?" He asked. "Sit down," she replied briefly. A few minutes later, the door opened again and Amanda entered the house. Her confident posture and impeccable appearance only made Sarah even angrier. "What is she doing here?" John asked, already realizing that his secret was out. "I want to ask you, John," Sarah began. "What is she doing in our lives?" John fell silent, looking for an excuse, but Sarah didn't give him time. I know about the account, about the transfers, about your meetings," she continued. "And now I want to know everything." If you already know everything, why are you doing this show?" Amanda asked coldly. Because I want to hear it from both of you," Sarah replied, looking directly into John's eyes. John sighed and gave in. Yes, we had a relationship," he said, "but it was a mistake." Mistake? Hello? Sarah repeated, barely able to contain her anger. "And you spent our money on it, or it was only to finish it off?" John tried to defend himself. Amanda laughed. "Finish it. You were the one who kept calling me," she said. John turned pale. That's not true," he said, but he sounded unsure. "That's enough," Sarah interrupted. "You're both guilty, but what I want to know is why. John, why did you betray me after everything we've been through together?" John lowered his head, not knowing what to say. I was missing something new," he finally admitted. These words hurt Sarah. "And you decided that newness was worth destroying our family," she asked, feeling her voice tremble. Sarah looked at Amanda. "Did you get what you wanted?" she asked. "I always get what I want," Amanda replied with a smile. "Not this time," Sarah said coldly. "John, you will no longer have access to our joint accounts. And you, Amanda, can look for a new sponsor." Amanda left the house, furious that her plans had been thwarted. John remained standing in the living room, looking defeated. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Sarah said, looking at him. Then she went to the bedroom, leaving John alone with his thoughts. After the meeting with John and Amanda, Sarah felt that her life was at a crossroads. She realized that she could no longer live as she had before, and her trust had been shattered, and the memories of her betrayal were haunting her. The next morning, Sarah was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, looking at the photos she had taken with John. We've been through so much together, she thought, but is it enough to forgive? She remembered how they had met, how they had built a home together and raised their son. But every memory was now tainted with lies and betrayal. Sarah decided to meet with Kathy to share her thoughts. "I don't know what to do anymore," she said. "Part of me wants to give him a chance, but the other part of me just wants to run away." "You have to think about yourself, Sarah," Kathy replied. "Can you live with a man who betrayed you?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. That same day, Sarah decided to consult a lawyer. If you decide to file for divorce," the lawyer said, "you are entitled to half of the joint property." "And if I decide to stay?" Sarah asked. "Then you will need to sign a new marriage contract," the lawyer explained. Sarah thought about it. She realized that in any case, she would need to protect herself and her future. Sarah decided to talk to her son. She knew it would be difficult, but she didn't want to hide the truth from him. "Michael, your father and I are having problems," she said. "I've noticed that something is wrong," he replied. Sarah told him about John's infidelity and her doubts about the future. "Mom, I will always be on your side," Michael said. "You deserve to be happy." These words gave her strength. After much thought, Sarah decided to take action. She invited John to talk to her. I've been thinking a lot," she began, "and I've made a decision." John looked tense. "I'm willing to try to fix it," he said. "It's not that easy," Sarah replied. "If you want me to stay, you have to change." She pulled out the documents the lawyer had prepared. "This is a marriage contract. You will sign it if you want me to give you a chance." The agreement stated that John would no longer have access to the joint accounts and would be able to make large expenditures without her consent. "And one more thing," Sarah added. "You have to go to a family psychologist with me." John nodded, realizing that this was his only chance. Sarah knew that her decision was risky, but she decided to give them both a chance to make things right. Several months passed after Sarah made her big decision. She tried to move on, but John's betrayal left a deep mark on her heart. Her life had become different, new rules, new habits, and what seemed to be a new version of herself. Sarah began to devote more time to herself. She enrolled in an art class she had long dreamed of taking and joined a local reading club. "This is my time," she told herself. Every morning, she woke up thinking about how to make this day better. John, as promised, started seeing a family psychologist. He became more attentive and tried to earn forgiveness. "I know what I did was wrong," he said one evening, "but I want you to believe me again." Sarah nodded, but her eyes remained cold. "It will take time," she replied. Despite John's efforts, Sarah felt that her heart was no longer open to him as it had been. She began to wonder if they should have continued this marriage, or can I ever trust him again? She asked herself every night. Michael often called her from college, supporting his mother in her time of need. "How are you, Mom?" he asked one day. "It's hard, but I'm doing okay," she replied. If you feel like you can't forgive, that's okay," Michael said. "You have the right to choose what makes you happy." These words stuck with her. One day, while walking in the park, Sarah met Richard, the same private investigator who had helped her find out the truth. "Sarah, how are you?" he asked. "I'm hanging in there," she replied. Richard offered to have coffee, and Sarah unexpectedly agreed. The conversation with Richard made Sarah realize that her life was not limited to her marriage to John. she realized that she had the power to start over. You deserve to be happy," Richard said. Sarah smiled for the first time in a long time. That evening, sat at home looking through photos of her and John. She took one of the pictures of them both smiling and put it in a drawer. I don't know what my future will look like yet," she told herself, "but I'm not afraid of it anymore." Sarah went upstairs to the bedroom where John was waiting for her. Their eyes met, but this time they were silent. That silence was their whole story: pain, hope, and uncertainty. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments. What would you do in Sarah's shoes?